This is the Brian HORNBACK Experience. This is episode 102, and I've got another candidate that will be on the ballot on November the 8th. That's the second Tuesday of November. That's the federal and state general election. Early voting is October the 19th, Wednesday, October 19th through Thursday, November 3rd. And I have the Democrat candidate for the United States Congress from the 2nd Congressional District, which is Knox and several other counties. But we have former Knox County Commissioner Mark Harmon. How are you, Mark?
I'm very well, Brian. Good to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. So just to kind of reintroduce people to you, because I don't think you're not a stranger to those of us in Knox County. You served on the Knox County Commission from 2006 until 2010.
That's correct. I did. Great experience. Learned a lot. And it was a wonderful experience serving the community.
Yeah.
And then I got back on the ballot in 2014 as a candidate for the State Democratic Party Executive Committee, and was elected to that in a contested election, re-elected. And my term will expire September 1st. 2 terms on that has been enough.
Wow. So I'm on I served the last year, I guess August the 14th. The Republican State Executive Committee appointed me to fill a portion of Matt Coleman's time, and so he had moved to Loudoun County. So how did you like the Democrat State Executive Committee for 8 years?
Well, I mean, the Democratic Party Executive Committee, like the Republican, I'm sure, is an important body. The meetings can get a bit tedious and long, but that's true of any organization with a lot of work to do.
Sure.
But I enjoyed it very much. Party executive committees do important things. They deal with resources, the sharing of resources. I mean, everything from how campaigns are organized to how to respond when the party gets sued over something. That all falls to the executive committee.
Yep.
And they're important decisions.
Yep. Well, let's move on from that, because you're now running again. You're now running for Congress. We have someone who's been serving since 2018 on the Republican side, who is the incumbent, and he faced Renee Hoyas, I guess, in the last 2 elections. So now he gets to face Mark Harmon. So now, of course, you're no stranger to federal elections either, because you ran a competitive race in Texas long before, back in the 90s, I think, back before you and your wife moved to Knoxville. So, yeah. But what brought you to Renee Hoyas has relocated to Virginia, and so it looked like there might not be a Democrat candidate, but Mark Harmon looked at the lay of the land and said, I'm gonna take this on.
I'm gonna do it on. Yeah, let me just clarify some of the details. Yeah,
sure.
I ran in 1998 in West Texas.
98, okay.
Yeah, 1998. What was then the 13th district. It's just been significantly redrawn. But it was a huge district. It was probably about the size of Indiana. It was 35 counties and parts of 3 more. I used to joke I stopped counting the mileage and started counting the oil changes. But I had a great time running. I learned a lot. I won the Democratic primary, even though I was outspent about 5-1.
Wow.
I couldn't win the general election. Maybe being outspent 28-1 by an incumbent had something to do with it.
Sure.
But it was a great learning experience. Actually, if you think about all the times I've been on the ballot, both in Texas as a county chair and then here, right now I am 8 for 9. Lost once that time. You're right that I moved here in 1999, January 1999. But not with my wife. I met my wife here.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I met my wife here at church in, I guess it was 2002, 2001, 2002. She'll come in for not remembering.
Oh, that's all right.
But anyhow, we met here, married here. I've been living in the same home at North Hills for almost 20 years now.
Wow. So you're gonna so now, instead of having 35 counties, you got there's about 8 counties in the 2nd Congressional District?
Yeah, it's 8. One has only 1 precinct, but yeah, it is a sprawling thing. The heart of it is Knox, Blunt, and Loudoun. That's the majority of the population. but I haven't forgotten Granger or Claiborne, a part of Campbell, and one precinct in Jefferson, and Union County, of course.
Right. So so obviously you've got a website, you've got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We'll cover all that toward the end. But there's several things on your website that I want to kind of touch on, because I think those are the main issues that you're kind of, that I guess you're hearing from your constituency. So the first one's minimum wage. We've been, I guess, in the region with Mayor India Kincannon. She has made it a priority now that all city employees will make $15 or greater. So talk about minimum wage and how a congressman can help affect that, not only in the region but nationally.
Well, sure. Well, the federal minimum wage, is the Tennessee wage. We don't have a wage minimum beyond that here in the state of Tennessee. So if the federal government were to pass a legislation raising the minimum wage, it would, affect everybody, but it would especially affect Tennessee, where we're at I was at $7.25 now.
I think
it's pretty low now, wherever it is. Is it $7.50, $7.75?
Somewhere,
for not knowing.
Somewhere less than $8, but it's cool.
It's pretty low right now, and it hasn't increased with inflation. And quite frankly, I think we should be rewarding families for working, and we're not now. And so I know people worry about, it's going to cause inflation or it's going to cause unemployment, or both. We've had the experience of several communities, even some states, that have raised the minimum wage and have not experienced that problem.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking.
They've not had much of a problem at all. So I would be inclined to raise it as high as $15 an hour.
Well, yeah, and your first number was accurate. I just now pulled it up. Tennessee is at $7.25, which is the federal. There's no state minimum. I see South Dakota, just in a Google search, South Dakota's gone to $9.95, but we're right there with Texas and Utah, and I guess several others. But
several other states.
But yeah, $7.25 is the federal minimum wage. So it's I don't know how anybody could obviously my party is my party's my party, but I don't know how anybody can provide for their family at that kind of wage. But
most of the estimates are that if we were to raise it nationally, it would raise about 2 million people out of poverty.
Wow.
And that to me is worth the effort. I mean, if a Big Mac costs 3 cents more or something, I'm willing to put up with that to have that improvement for working families.
Right. So then another issue is somewhat, I'm sure you've got some experience from your job, from your work at the university, but you have affordable college on here. Yes. Talk about that, and then also what, from your experience at the university, has Tennessee done a better job with the lottery proceeds, where you get 2 years of free college? Has that helped? Has that brought people to the college? And then there were several different arguments about that it might bring some people into the college for 2 years that might, I don't want to call it dumbing down, but
no, there's been no evidence of dumbing down.
Right.
I'm going to do something that is rare for a Democrat. I'm going to praise some Republicans. I think Bill Haslam and Randy Boyd were right to create a program that in effect was sort of a last dollar program.
Right.
That we will help you get to the cost of your tuition if your aid falls short. That is a good idea, and that has improved the number of people from modest means families getting into college, often first-generation college attending. And the people at UT keep track of these things, do we? And I just got some numbers from a faculty retreat, and the numbers of students are going to be way up this year. Their performance based on standardized tests and high school grades and other metrics are fine. The first generation students are doing really well. They're not doing any worse than anyone else. As a matter of fact, I think they're more motivated in some cases. I was, only the second person in 3 generations of my family to go to college, and I really value it. And I think it's the key to a person being more thorough, more job prepared, more of a critical thinker. I think it gives you life skills. And so that's why I'd like to see not only that, we are we've fallen out of the top 10 in terms of nation states where the percentage of the population going on to college. And we got to improve that. We've got to improve our social mobility. We've got to improve the percentage going to college. And we got to improve the percentage staying in college. Now, you're right about dropouts, but UT has had a significant improvement in the past 3 to 4 years in retention. That used to be a problem. We're working on it, and several of our measures appear to be working.
Right. Well, and I do think, from my time, 20 years ago, I went on the Knox County School Board, and the one thing that I was proud of was the creation of Project Grad, because Project Grad was a program that gave kids, particularly in the inner city, a chance. It gave them the opportunity and the vision that if they did everything that was expected of them and maintained a grade point average, then we would help them. The Project Grad would then help them get to college. And I think that, and then coming along with the lottery, which I wasn't a fan of the lottery, but you know what? If people are going to spend their money on a lottery, then I do agree with you that what Bill Haslam and Randy Boyd have done really has helped to bring that up. It's not brought it to where Bill Haslam wanted it to be at this point, but we're moving in the right direction.
To me, the best parallel is an old one. It's the original GI Bill of Rights.
Oh yeah.
I mean, everybody worried that all these working class kids coming in after the war, they're going to lower standards and not take things seriously and whatever. Far from it. They were serious students, and they built the American middle class for probably 2 generations based on that one good bit of letting people rise to their abilities, with college as a big help.
Wow. Let's talk about healthcare.
Sure.
Obviously, previous administration, the Obamacare, and then whatever it was that the Republicans redid when Trump and the Republicans took over, and we're still kind of in a bit of a healthcare flux, because if you don't have a job that provides health insurance coverage, you're kind of lost out there. But kind of talk about what you see, what you've seen, and what you would like to see as the next congressman toward health care.
Well, we've got a serious problem with health care, and it's on several levels. One is we just can't be the only developed nation state without a universal care plan, and we don't have that now. What the minimum step that I want to see happen is that I'd like to see every plan that's offered on the exchanges include a public option. That was in the original version of the bill. So if you want to buy into, and the key there is buy into, it's not a giveaway. If you want to buy into a Medicare-like plan, then you should have the ability to do that through the exchanges. The other thing I'd like to see happen, now this is really at the state level, but I can be a big advocate for it. I think it's time that we stop kidding around and take expanded Medicaid in Tennessee. The failure to take expanded Medicaid, there's no good reason for it. We're literally throwing away billions of dollars. And it's also threatening, and it's already led to the closure of several rural hospitals. So those are some of the things I think we need to do immediately. Now, if someday we work our way toward more of a Canadian or French or British model, we should learn from the international experience, but definitely have a national health policy that gets more people covered. Now, Obamacare got us partially there, the Affordable Care Act, but now we can take some good steps to get us farther down the road.
Right. Abortion rights. I know that the Supreme Court decision this summer has kind of made that an interesting issue. So I'm sure, I don't know that your position has changed any more, but before the Supreme Court decision than after the Supreme Court decision. But kind of talk about your position on abortion rights, and then also any reaction you have to the Supreme Court decision.
Oh, sure. Well, I think we're seeing all around the country a motivation of young people, especially young women, but young men as well, to get registered and express their outrage that a major right was taken away by a bad Supreme Court ruling. I supported Roe versus Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood. I think they were well decided and important cases, and the precedent should have been respected. I am pro-choice. In other words, my policy is trust women. Don't put any level of government between them and their healthcare providers and their difficult choices that they have to make. And that is who I am and what I've believed. I've believed it almost, I guess, my entire adult life. I have an association with Planned Parenthood. Back in Texas, I was on a board of Planned Parenthood. We had to have security training because of the threats. And I really believe that this issue is motivating people around the country. And it is motivating people in the right direction because they're saying, oh my gosh, this has gone way too far. How'd this happen? We've got to get back to a more sensible position on abortion rights. And, if I pull off this upset win, I will be someone who will co-sponsor taking the policies of Roe and Casey and codifying them and putting them into federal law.
Sure. Well, and I asked our congressman, your opponent, his thought on election day about, I guess my thought has been that I thought the issue was an issue that has always been obviously in our public discourse, no matter what your position is, whether you're on one side or the other. And I really thought that really this issue, I thought, would galvanize people. Because let's face it, most of the people, we see a lot of voters that are complacent, that very, very apathetic. But the one thing that will motivate people to vote is anger. And so I was interested in it's not just him. I've asked other people, and I'll ask you. Well, you've already answered the question, but is this decision going to motivate people to the polls come November? I've had several people.
I think yes.
Right.
I think the answer to that question is yes. I don't know the percentages, but I think it's going to be a large number of people motivated to go to the polls. I think it's also going to lead to a large amount of spending, quite frankly. I think I predict that this election is going to hit presidential year levels of spending, just because of the hot issues and the deep and tight contests. So
when you talk about spending, you think that it's going to, you think it's that decision is going to it's going to provoke people to contribute more to political candidates that agree with their position, whatever side of the issue they're on. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, that's part of it. I think another part of it is groups who spend money, not specifically advocating for candidates, but sort of right at the margin of doing so.
Right.
And I think those groups will probably be very motivated to either keep the current law or try to get back to the days of Roe v. Wade.
Well, and I think some of the other chatter I've heard is that some companies and some insurance companies may start covering out of state travel for women and couples that need, because we're recording this podcast on August the 20. What is it? August 22nd.
22nd.
So we're just a few days away from abortion being done in Tennessee. And so, I have heard some chatter that some companies and some insurance companies are going to start providing that. And so, again, that's just an additional cost that's going to continue to drive up insurance that will then drive up premiums because at some point it's got to be paid for, right? I've classified myself as a pro-life person. To me, I haven't seen, it seems like the things that have been put into place have reduced the number of abortions. I don't know. I guess I'm 56 years old, and I guess in all the years, I don't know that I ever thought that there would be a decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, and I think it'll be an issue for the Congress, the Senate, and I'm sure there's going to be some more lawsuits that come on down the line. So we just continue to continue to travel down that road. Decriminalization of cannabis. That's not one of the. We've covered the 4 big issues on your website, but it seems like even some Republicans are getting on to the decriminalization of cannabis. One of our state representatives, actually, I think he's one of the Republican leaders, has been pushing this for some time. I jokingly have told him that I think it's because he wants his county that has been making moonshine illegally for years. Now that it's legal, he wants the farmers to be making marijuana. But let's kind of talk about that. And I'll be honest with you. I talked to a candidate who was unsuccessful in the Republican primary August 4th, who is a big advocate for cannabis. And he said something on the podcast that he was on back in July that I had never considered. And that is that there's never been an overdose death with cannabis. And I don't know, somewhere along the way, I guess I'd missed that. And I haven't been able to, much of what I do is trust but verify, but I haven't been able to find that candidate was wrong about that. But kind of talk about your thoughts on cannabis and where we are as a country on cannabis, and if you think it's a state's issues or if you think it's a federal issue or a combination of both.
Well, I think your instincts are right that this is something that is not particularly partisan. I've heard Republicans and Democrats say this is about time for us to get real about this. And the reasons are many. One of the most important is we're filling our jails with people for relatively minor drug infractions, and that makes a heavy public cost, a heavy personal cost to those who now have a conviction on their records, and it'll affect their lives. I think decriminalization makes a lot of sense for, small amounts of marijuana and personal use. I think it's at the federal level, we still have some very foolish, lingering things. I mean, it's still in the same drug classification as heroin, for goodness sake. I mean, the classification system is just flat out wrong. Now, for the most part, the federal government can change its classification system, but for the most part, this is something that's going to be done at the state level. But if you want to have a more reasonable prison population, not ruin as many lives, and get a significant amount of tax revenue, then you should be for decriminalization.
Right. Well, folks can find you at markharmonforcongress.com. That's MarkHarmonfor Congress.com. You're on Facebook at Mark Harmon for Congress. You're on Instagram at Harmon, 4, Congress. And you're on Twitter at Harmon 4 with the 4 Congress. So I do appreciate you coming on my podcast and kind of talking about the issues. I'll give you the last 2 or 3 minutes to kind of tell folks all about why they should vote for you and what they can expect if you're the next congressman. And we'll remind people that early voting starts on Wednesday, October the 19th, runs through Thursday, November the 3rd, with the federal election on Tuesday, November the 8th. So the rest of it's yours, Mark.
Well, thank you, Brian. You're very thorough, by the way. You looked up all that stuff. I should mention I also have a YouTube channel and even a TikTok channel.
Oh well, I'll try to find those and put them in the story that's going to be on BrianHornback.com.
Very good, Brian. To tell people, I have been a resident of East Tennessee for 23 years now. It's become my home. Becky and I love it here. We're very active in our community. We live in North Hills. She's in the Garden Club, and I have this strange political thing that I do. I learned a lot as a county commissioner, and I was able to work across the aisle with people. I remember when Paul Pinkston, very conservative, and I ganged up on a bad Medicaid provider in our community who had a contract for senior citizens and impoverished senior citizens, and it was doing a terrible job. I remember when Greg Lambert and I got together and sponsored the legislation that changed the recall provisions to make it easier for people to have recall elections. I worked with Republicans for more than a year of effort, but we got ourselves a better vehicles policy. So I'm capable of working with others in a legislative setting and actually getting things done. This election really isn't going to be about right versus left. It's about right versus wrong. It was wrong when Tim Burchett voted against, certification of the election results. It was wrong when he voted against infrastructure aid that would really help our community. I think he's wrong to oppose abortion rights the way I support abortion rights. And I think he's just flat out wrong on several of his votes. He's voted against our NATO allies. He's voted against Ukraine aid. He even voted against expanded college age for our Gold Star family survivors. So I think he's just lost touch with the community. And I think he has gone to the swamp and become just another swamp creature. I mean, the pandemic comes along and he trades Denny's stock. What's that about? That's about the usual Washington game. Well, I'm not going to trade stock as a congressman, and I'm not going to play those games. I will be a congressman who simply works hard for the community the way I worked for neighborhoods and the community when I was a county commissioner. These are the things I care about. And what motivates me is making sure that the next generation does better. And that's why I've been a college instructor now, professor, in front of classrooms for almost 40 years now. And I like teaching. But to me, the college experience is so valuable. We have got to have kids graduating not in as much debt as they are. That means, yes, we can do some loan forgiveness, and we can have a discussion about what the amount should be. But more importantly, we should not be building up future debt. We should convert a lot of programs that are currently loans into grants. That might mean rolling back some of the Trump-era tax cuts for the millionaires and corporations. But I'm okay with doing that because we need to open up doors of opportunity for the next generation. That's what I'm about. That's why I'm running. And I hope people will look past odds and all things like that and just say, who would do a better job? And I think they'll conclude it will be Mark Harmon. And I hope they'll vote for me.
Fantastic. Well, good luck to you. And I'm sure we'll see you out on the campaign trail.
Brian, it's been a pleasure. And thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.